Okay, so we find ourselves Motzei Zeis Chanukah, the culmination of the eighth night, the day of Chanukah, as the Rebbe has given instruction in the past. There's a big mitzvah to get together the end of the eighth night of Chanukah, and it was then in 1986 the Rebbe gave the instruction to get people should gather together in honor of a Hakel year. And now it's also the end of a Hakel year. We're getting together and we're having a Farbengen Shir. And we're going to also, as we see in the background, we're going to be lighting the Hanukkah lights. Obviously, as the Rebbe has instructed, we don't light with a bracha, but we light during the time that we're getting together. And this comes and gives us the influence and the impact and also the blessing that when we come to the fullest amount of light that the menorah possesses, which are 8 lights, this escorts us throughout the entire year, gives us strength and health, happiness, parnasa, all the blessings of life, together with the biggest and greatest of blessings, the coming of the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, immediately now. And obviously by next Hanukkah we'll be having the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach lighting the menorah, like it states. It doesn't have to be by a Kohen Gadol or by a regular Kohen. Hadloka Keshera Bizar, even a person that is not a Kohen. So we'll definitely have the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach lighting the menorah for next year, Bezrat Hashem. And let's get to the lighting of the menorah. Adik Ner Chanukah and Sha'asa Nisim La'Avosenu. Obviously, the concepts are here on the culmination of the 8th night as well. We have to go and we have to spread miracles. The more that we tell about miracles, the greater and speed Hashem brings us the biggest miracle, the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach Teichef Miyad Mamash. Yichi Adonenu Morenu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech Ha'Moshiach Li'olam Voed. No, a nigun, everyone together. Tadai, 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 ladai, 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 tadai, ladai, 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 tadai, ladai, Haneres halolu, haneres halolu, halolu, haneres halolu, anu madlikin ala chuhes. Bram, 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 tararam, bram, 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 tararam, ane salolo, bram, bram, Bram tararam, bram em bram, bram tararam, anu madlikin ala chuos ve'al hanisim ve'al haniflois, bam bam, she'osi sola v'seino. She'osi sola v'seino bayomim oem bizman hazeh bayomim oem bizman hazeh Al yedei kayanecha akdeshim, 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 al yedei kayanecha akdeshim. Tadadadam, 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 yadam. Tadadam, 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 tadadam. Tadadam, 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 tadada yada, tadadam, 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 tadadam. V'chol shmei hasimei Chanukah neis alolu kedushem. Chol shmei hasimei Chanukah neis alolu kedushem. V'yein lanu yeshus lishtamesh bohein elo. Li'oson bilvod. Kedei le'oides ulalel. L'shimecho agodel. Leidei sulale, l'shimecho agodel. Al nisecho v'al nifleisecho v'al Yeshuoisecho. 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 Leidei sulale, l'shimecho agodel. Leidei sulale, l'shimecho agodel. Al nisecho v'al nifleisecho v'al Yeshuoisecho. Yichi Adonenu Mereinu v'Rabbeinu Melech Ha'Moshiach Eilam v'oed. Yichi Adonenu Mereinu v'Rabbeinu Melech Ha'Moshiach Eilam v'oed. Yichi Adonenu Mereinu v'Rabbeinu Melech Ha'Moshiach Eilam v'oed. Freilchen Motzei is Chanukah, and obviously, our story this week has to do with the holiday of Hanukkah, a miracle that took place during the holiday of Hanukkah quite a few years ago. We're going back to 1952. Yeah, 1952, Tafshin Yud Beis. This was a story that took place with a Rebbetzin Langsam. She was the mother. She's the mother of Rab Shmuel Langsam of Crown Heights. If people know him, he's actually I think he sells insurance. If I'm not mistaken. That's what's printed. Nevertheless, I don't know if he still sells insurance. Nicole Mokim. He tells this following story about his mother. Before he tells the story, so he goes and he gives a little background to his mother's character and to his mother's past of Mesirus Nefesh, literally putting her life on the line, putting her life in danger in order to go in to assist and to help other Yidden with Avas Yisrael. She ran away from Russia. She was able to get away much earlier, 6 years before that. That was in 1946, Tafshin Vov. And what she was doing is the following: she was with her husband in Samarkand, and in Samarkand it was very dangerous, and they were trying to get as many Jews out of Russia, out of the Russian bloc, the bloc of the USSR as possible. And many Jews, as we know, different stories with Rav Mendel Futterfass and so on. They went and they would forge papers, and they would do it in very unbelievable, unimaginable ways. People that already were not alive, they would take their papers and they would change the details, and they would supply these papers with people in order to get out of Russia. But this Rebbetzin Langsam, she had something a little bit more original. She actually gave people kosher papers to get out of Russia. But how do you do that? How do you get kosher papers from the secret police, which was then the NKVD? How do you give them families and people kosher papers to get out of Russia? She went and she gave a bribe to a woman who was a leading officer in the NKVD. And she received the forms, filled out the details of the individuals and the families. Then she would literally put herself in danger, go into the secret police station. She would go into the restroom, and there she would meet up with this woman officer. She would give her all the forms that were filled out, and a little while later, the woman would come back and hand her all the forms stamped kosher. All the families were able to go into, whoever was there at least, was able to leave Russia. And as we said, it was one of the most unbelievable and really, really dangerous positions to put oneself in. But nevertheless, she really didn't take under consideration what this demanded, as long as she was able to go and to get at least another family or even another individual out of the danger zone of the communist regime. It goes to the extent that years later, Rabbi Simcha Gorodetsky, who was also arrested by the communists for a terrible crime. His crime was the fact that he was spreading Yiddishkeit all over Russia. When he was in jail for a very, very long sentence, so the officers in the jail came to him and they said that we'll sweeten your imprisonment and take off years of your prison decree if you give us any information as to how to find this woman, Rebbetzin Langsam. Now, this was only years later, after Rabbi Simcha Gorodetsky got out of Russia, that he told this story. And he said that, he obviously didn't give any details whatsoever, but it was already 10 years after Rebbetzin Langsam left Russia, and they were still looking for her. And Rabbi Langsam said he wouldn't be surprised if they're still actually looking for her even to this moment. Nevertheless, the story, let's go back. She escaped Russia in 1946. In 1952, when Rabbi Langsam, the son that's telling the story, was 4 years old, so his mother became very ill. She was suffering from all kinds of different not good feelings, and she went from doctor to doctor in order to go and to get some kind of analysis, a diagnosis, what she's suffering from. None of the doctors were able to go and to tell her, until she finally came to some big professor and this is back in 1952, mind us. In Manhattan, this professor went and he made all types of different checks until he finally came to the conclusion that he found that this woman, Rebbetzin Langsam, was suffering from Yena Machala, the big C, and she was shocked to hear this, because in general she was a very healthy woman. And then the doctor told her, she said, what is she supposed to do? In those days, they didn't have the knowledge that we have today of how to go and to treat these types of things. Rahman al-Islam, if a person ever has this type of sickness, they didn't have the machinery. They didn't have any iota of knowledge whatsoever to treat this. So the doctor looked at her and he said, as far as he's concerned, he recommends that she goes home and enjoys the few days and months that she has with her family. To receive this type of a notice was like, it was the Seif HaOlam, the end of the world. So she went out of the doctor's office and she immediately got on a train, but she didn't go home, at least not to her personal home. She went straight to 770 Eastern Parkway. She went straight to the Rebbe's secretary, the Rebbe's personal secretary, Rabbi Chadakov, and she, in a very hysteric manner, explained to Rabbi Chadakov that she must see the Rebbe this minute. Rabbi Chadakov looked at her and he said to her, "What? Right now? By day? It's impossible. The Rebbe doesn't receive anyone for Yechidus by day. Besides that, it was in the middle of Hanukkah, and during Hanukkah, the Rebbe doesn't receive anyone for Yechidus. There was no Yechidus during Hanukkah in the evenings." Then Rabbi Chadakov looked at her and he said the best that he could do is that, he said the waiting list for people to go into the Rebbe for Yechidus is very long, but he could perhaps push her in within 3 months. She started to shout and said, she doesn't have 3 months to wait. She's at the end of her days and months. And she started to say, she has to see the Rebbe right now and speak to the Rebbe. Rabbi Chadakov tried to explain to her and say, listen, maybe write to the Rebbe. She said, no, I have to speak to the Rebbe. And in the midst of the argument, Rabbi Chadakov said, listen, maybe write to the Rebbe that you want to speak to him right now. And to this, she at the end agreed. She wrote to the Rebbe. Rabbi Chadakov brought in her note, and the Rebbe answered. The Rebbe's reply was that the Rebbe will see Rebbetzin Langsam after Mincha upstairs in the Gan Eden HaTachtin. In other words, the corridor that leads to the Rebbe's room, Gan Eden HaElyon. She stood there and she was like waiting like a soldier. The Rebbe finished Mincha. Obviously, right after Mincha, there's the lighting of the menorah, and the Rebbe came upstairs. When the Rebbe came upstairs, the Rebbe turned to Rebbetzin Langsam, and Rebbetzin Langsam started to explain to the Rebbe her situation and what the doctor said. And she was again going hysteric, because she said the doctor said that she only has 3 months left to live. And the Rebbe looked at her, and the Rebbe tried to calm her down. And based on everything that we told at the beginning of our story tonight, we understand when the Rebbe comes and tells her, listen, this is not the Rebbetzin Langsam that I know from Samarkand. In other words, the Rebbe was saying to her that such a brave woman, such a strong woman, it doesn't seem fitting for her, for her character, for her personality, to behave like this. The Rebbe said, listen, from the diagnosis of one doctor, this is causing you to lose your state of mind. And she looks at the Rebbe as though to say, but Rebbe, what am I supposed to do? Rebbe looked at her with very kind eyes filled with light. And the Rebbe said, if you ask me, I think that you should go home. Give out Hanukkah geld, give out Hanukkah geld to your children. Fry latkes and forget about what the doctor told you. You can understand if it was a regular person and the Rebbe is giving this type of a reply, it would not be easy to just go home and do what the Rebbe said. But we're talking about a soldier of the Rebbe. This Rebbetzin Langsam, she was a soldier, and she heard what the Rebbe said. She thanked the Rebbe for listening to her. She went home and she did exactly that. She called all her children around her. She gave out Hanukkah geld to the children. She went to the kitchen. She grated the potato and onion, prepared latkes, and she sat down by the table with her family. From that day on, she did not hear any more about the well-known sickness, about the big C. And not only did she not hear about the sickness, but she lived on. This woman lived on for another 40 years. 40 years. Yechi Adonenu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu HaMelech Ha'Moshiach le'olam voed. So when we say in the blessings of the Hanukkah lights, Bayamim Hahem Bizman Hazeh Sha'asan Nisim La'avoseinu, he who performed miracles for our forefathers, Bayamim Hahem, in those days, for the Chashmonoim, for the children of Matisyahu ben Yochanan Kohen Godel, Bayamim Hahem, he also performs miracles for us in these days as well. And Hashem should help and bring us already the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach on a good and revealed basis with joy and happiness of the heart. And it should be on immediately now, Teichef u'miyad mamish. Yechi Adonenu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach le'olam voed. Hanukkah Sameach. Moshiach now.